the Everything But Politics podcast.
All right, we're back, and we have a fun one today, as Everything But Politics is proud to welcome Hal Morris. Hal, great to have you join us, and great to meet you.
Merrick, my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, definitely. So, like I said, thanks for joining us. This is exciting. Hal, I believe you could maybe answer this. I believe you're the only person from Munster, Indiana to have a World Series ring. Is that correct?
I think that's probably accurate, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us about your upbringing in Munster, because we haven't had many Munster people on our show, a handful, if that. So what was your upbringing like, baseball, home life, that led you to, of course, going to Michigan and then having a successful career in the MLB?
Sure. So my mom and dad are both from Charlotte, North Carolina. And my dad eventually went to medical school and then was in the Army in the mid '60s. And he decided he wanted to be close to an urban area that had a teaching school where he could send complicated cases. So he ended up wanting to be outside of Chicago. So my folks moved from Fort Rucker, Alabama, to Munster in 1967. I was 2 years old, and we grew up. The first house that my folks had was over on Forest Avenue, over by Lansing. One street away from State Line, and then right next to the Lansing Christian School there. So back at that time, this was pre-computers. This was pre-internet. We just played sports. That was our real outlet, and there wasn't a whole lot else to do. So I just grew up playing everything. Back then it seemed like it was a little colder, so we would in the winter. So we played baseball, and then it got to the fall, we'd play football and basketball. Then in the winter, we'd freeze our backyards and play hockey. We'd play everything. But I was always kind of attracted to baseball, and my dad was just the greatest. So when he came home from work, if weather allowed, he would take me out and pitch to me, and we'd walk across the street over into Lansing, over at the Lansing Christian School. We would hit, and that was kind of the biggest joy in my life. And then my father's family, my dad's uncle had played in the major leagues in the 30s and the 40s. His name is Buddy Lewis, J.K. Lewis from Gastonia, North Carolina. He was a great player, made the All-Star team a couple times. Now Javier Baez just made the All-Star team as an outfielder. Javier is I think the first player to make it as a shortstop and as an outfielder. Well, my uncle made it as a third baseman as an outfielder. So there are some similarities there.
Wow.
But anyway, so I was kind of attracted to baseball, but also, like I said, to everything else. Swam competitively. Munster back then was known as the swim capital of Indiana, and we had great swim teams in the '70s. So I swam competitively till I was in 8th grade, but eventually kind of was pointed towards baseball, and that was always the kind of the family's passion, and that's how I ended up kind of getting steered in that direction. And I played tennis and basketball and baseball in high school, but decided that baseball is going to be what I wanted to play when I went to college.
So from the time you were a kid playing all these sports, then from high school to baseball at University of Michigan, and then a long career in the MLB, how did the sacrifices evolve at each level? Because I would imagine they kept intensifying.
Well, I mentioned my dad. I think there were a lot of sacrifices for our family. And my mom, bless her heart, would always go out and shag balls for us when we were out there hitting. And my sister Beth joined quite a bit as well. So as I look back at it, and now I have my kids that are participating in athletics. My family's their sole focus was on our extracurricular activities. My baseball. My sister was a great swimmer. My brother's baseball. So there were real familial sacrifices, and frankly, I really didn't know anything else. This was all I wanted to do from the time that I was probably 3 or 4 years old. This was my real passion. So I really didn't view it as a sacrifice, more as an opportunity. And as I got to Michigan, that was an entirely different level of baseball. Michigan at the time had one of the top 4 or 5 programs in the country. I didn't realize that. I walked on. My dad and I kind of stumbled upon that, sitting me up there in Ann Arbor. But I was really lucky. Played with great players, Barry Larkin, Jim Abbott. We had 7 guys playing the big leagues off my team. We were the best team in the North, period. And getting that opportunity to play with players like this, and we had great coaches. That really made my career right there.
Now with travel baseball, it seems like it's so much more competitive, and you kind of have to take the travel route if you want to go play in college and in the big leagues. What do you think is the difference between now and when you were playing baseball?
I think there's specialization across all of the amateur sports now.
Mm,
I don't know if it's a great thing. I think a lot of businesses have grown up around these, have popped up, and there's real incentive with these sports specific businesses to have the kids playing year round. I
Yeah,
don't know if it's the best thing for the kids or for their development. When after I retired, I eventually started scouting, and I worked for the Pirates for a couple of years, the Red Sox, and I was the Angel scouting director for 5 years. But we liked players that played multiple sports. We felt like their
interesting.
developmental palette was broader. So I think that I don't think it's ever going to change. But I don't think that playing multiple sports is a bad thing. I think it's a great thing. It's frowned upon again by some of the coaches. But if I had, like my daughter's, she's a tennis player and she plays tennis pretty much exclusively, but she's really not drawn to anything else. But if she wanted to play golf or swim, do whatever, I would encourage her to do that.
And
wait,
when
so
you
when
were scouting, what are like the key things you're looking at?
Well, you know, when you're scouting, major potential major league players, obviously there has to be a certain level of talent. With pitchers, there has to be a certain arm speed, or what you project to be arm speed. You want to see athleticism with the pitchers. Again, um, I would love when the guys I was scouting, if they played basketball, if they put other sports, I could go watch them play, and it would give me a lot of insight into what the type of athlete they're going to be. Why is that important with the pitchers? Because a lot of times you're looking at high school pitchers, you might see someone who, again, throws the ball pretty well, can spin it a little bit, but they haven't really developed a changeup, and they haven't kind of refined their delivery and their repertoire. If they're athletic, there's a lot more of a
Of course,
probability that
yeah.
they're going to develop that. Even these guys get it in the big leagues and they're young. If these guys are athletic, they're going to continue to learn. With the position players, hitting, you have to hit to play and to make it to the big leagues.
Yeah.
So you're looking for hand-eye coordination and bat speed. Swings can be developed. And like in Chicago here, Pete Crow Armstrong, if you look at his swing when he first came up to his swing now, it's changed a good bit. And credit to the Cubs and to their hitting instructors and to Pete. I mean, he is one of the most impactful players in baseball right now, and that swing has really evolved in the last couple of years.
Apollo Celine's got your summer playlist covered. Check out their new bangers, Out Till Morning and Search for the Light, available on all streaming platforms. Released June 20th, 2025, these tracks are pure energy, perfect for late night drives or beachside vibes. Don't miss the songs defining summer 2025. Wait, so with that said, with the multi-athlete, now, for example, would you want a star hitter or any effective hitter for that matter? Would you want them golfing twice a week?
That's a sensitive subject with me because when we went on strike in 1994, I started playing golf. I never played golf before then and screwed up my hitting. So, I encourage young guys, be careful. When you're pitcher, hitter. If you're being successful, you know, unfortunately, or fortunately, unfortunately, the mindset of these big league players is, I want to get better, I want to improve, you know. But if your mechanics are tight, you know, if you're being successful, I'd be careful about tinkering too much. So it depends upon the player. If they've grown up playing golf, I'd say, yeah, you know, that's fine. But if they've never played before, I'd be careful about it.
That's interesting. So what was the biggest impact it made on your baseball swing?
Well, I had a really unorthodox, you know, way of hitting. I moved my feet, and that was kind of my timing mechanism. And then I would kind of rock my hands and move my feet. When I started playing golf, I tried to stop that because I didn't want my feet moving. You know, I couldn't hit the golf ball real well. So I just tried to. I sat in my basement hitting golf balls because unfortunately I've got a little tinge of OCD. So if I'm going to try something, I'm going to really, I want to try to improve. And
Yeah.
when I did that, I kind of altered my timing mechanism. So after that, I never really hit quite the same, and I was never as comfortable in the box as I was up to that point.
Interesting.
Hal, you were at the game-winning RBI sac fly in the World Series. How memorable is that?
Sorry about my dog, by the way.
No
Um,
worries.
it's you know kind of what I my whole career. You know, I played you know a good number of years, but basically my whole career is kind of known for that one particular at bat. Um, so it's funny. There are many things about my career that I don't have a great memory, but I remember that very clearly. Um, I could remember being on the on deck circle as I approached the plate. We had a great bullpen, so we were really spoiled. If we were winning after 5 or 6 innings, we were going to win that game. We were just, you know, um, we were confident, you know, completely confident that no one was going to score on our bullpen. So I walked up to the plate knowing, listen, if you can drive this run in, you guys have won the World Series. So stepped into the box, you know, took a step out, tried to collect my thoughts, calm myself down a little bit, and I just looked for a ball out or a ball up that I could hit up in the air. And if you watch that at bat, Dave Stewart throws me a fastball, a little bit elevated fastball. You know, a lot of people in that situation say, no, you got to look down. Well, I was looking up because I'm trying to hit a ball up in the air. And I was trying to hit a fly ball at center field because I knew if I could, you know, if it was a
Yeah,
little in, I'd pull it a little out, I'd hit it to the left center and hit a ball at right field. Normally, I think I could hit that ball at the park, but I was not looking to drive it. I was looking to hit a sac fly. And as soon as the ball left my bat, I just knew that's it. We won.
that's
That's
so
awesome.
special.
Well, so having a 13-year career, 300 plus batting average, you clearly know a thing or two about longevity. How did that? How did your relationship with longevity translate to your life post baseball?
Well, you know, I think when you're playing baseball, it's professional baseball. It's a game of failure, you know. You know, so everyone, I had a 300 career average, so I was failing 7 times out of 10.
Yeah.
So I think that what I learned as I started playing and began to practice as as my career progressed is um, just to kind of forget about what I had done the day before and wake up every day with a hopefully optimistic mindset and with the attitude I'm going to go out there and work as hard as I can today. And at the end of the day, I'll be content with whatever the outcome is. So you kind of taught me to force me to be resilient. So that experience, in that mindset allowed me to play for a long time. And a lot of guys struggle with that. You see a lot of talented players in the minor leagues, and the peaks and valleys are tough for them to overcome. The guys that are able to get back up, get back in the saddle the next game seem to persevere better. So I think that's probably helped me in my post baseball career too, because wake up in the morning hopefully with a it's a fresh day. Hopefully something positive is going to happen. And if it doesn't, then, I'll go at it again tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, so the hitting part is so impressive because you have some of the best athletes ever, like Deion Sanders and Michael Jordan, and they struggled to hit like the curveball, and obviously you had such an incredible career behind the plate. I mean, what is it for guys like that are so athletic? Like, what makes it so hard to hit the ball?
Well, I think it's a couple things. You know, uh, that hand-eye coordination you need to hit a baseball is very specific, one. And two, it takes you years and years and years to develop a swing with which to use that hand-eye coordination. So, I played with Dion. I think Dion, had he focused on baseball, he could have been a Hall of Fame player, but he was busy. He was playing football. He ran track. He did a lot of different things. In Michael Jordan's case, he might very well, had he really focused on baseball from the time that he was a child, he might have been able to perform at the higher levels. Um, One challenge with Jordan is, I think when you have longer arms and levers like that, it takes you longer to develop your swing. That's why usually pitchers and tall pitchers and the tall hitters, it takes them a little bit longer before they figure it all out.
Hal,
Interesting.
outside of your sack fly, what is your favorite moment while playing the MLB?
Uh, I think that the playoff series we played before that with the Pirates was very exciting. There was no game was ever neither team either had a lead larger than 3 runs in the entire series. It was really tight. That was really exciting. So I would probably point to that as the prelude to the World Series, but it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. Yeah, what a fun thing. And you know, the championships are what people remember, but it's cool to hear like what led to that championship and the details that maybe aren't as memorable to those, 30, 40 years later. So very cool. And Hal, another thing that I want to highlight is you went back to Stanford about 20 years ago to get your MBA. How valuable is that?
I tell you what, I just wish I could have done it 20 years prior.
Mm,
It was really an extraordinary experience for me. They were so great. I was the oldest student in the class, and all my classmates were very, uh, you know, magnanimous about accepting my lack of business experience, and a lot of my deficiencies probably as a student. So it was just an extraordinary experience just to sit in those classrooms and to listen to ideas being dissected, thoughts being pinged around the room. It was really the collection of people there was extraordinary. And it's I think I probably draw on that almost daily, that education.
it from the time you began, from the time you left. This is of course post baseball. How did you evolve the most as a businessman?
Well, I really didn't have. I mean, I tried to read a lot when I was playing, and I tried to understand markets and different investment strategies. But I didn't have any practical experience. Again, the training I got at Stanford was very, very helpful, and I think developing soft skills, helping me communicate better. As a player, you don't really have to communicate. You're kind of in your own little world. Um, but I think that training helped a great deal. And everything I've done since then has kind of helped me build on that.
What is your number one piece of business advice?
I think transparency, with whomever you're dealing, I think at times it can be challenging to have difficult conversations, but people appreciate candor. Whomever you're dealing with, and whatever the relationship is, rip the Band-Aid off. And if you got to have a challenging, a difficult conversation, the sooner you do it, the better. And I think everyone involved will be happy that you did.
And that's probably true outside of business too, in all aspects of life.
I think so. I think when you don't address things, I think that little issues can fester and get a little bit more magnified. But I credit my wife is a business executive, and she is very skilled at having those conversations. So she helps me on that front.
Awesome. Well, shortly after Stanford, you kind of had that bug to go back into baseball, becoming a scout, and you actually went to scout school, which I've never heard of. So what happens at scout school?
Yeah, so I did. So my story was I was tinkering with some real estate stuff after I came out of business school, and the it was myself and a few other guys, and our office was literally across the street from the ballpark in San Francisco. So after about I've been away from the game for I don't know 7 8 years. I kind of got the itch to do it exactly as you described it, Mary, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I called Billy Bean, who I'd played against in the minor leagues and was an acquaintance. And he said, "Yeah, come on over." So I had lunch one day with Billy Bean and Farhan, who was later the GM of the Giants. And I just said, "Hey, Billy, what do you think? In this baseball ecosystem, where do you think I would fit? Where do you think I would fit?" He said, "Hal, I think you'd love scouting." So he sent me to scout school. At the time, the Major League Scouting Bureau would uh, they would every team would sponsor like two individuals, and they would go and they would teach them how to scout for a week. And I went down to Phoenix, and I was there with all these scouts that had been working in the business for collectively, 200 years, and we sat back there, and they, trained us all into how to evaluate players. And honestly, I had no idea what scouting was about at that point. I just remember looking up in the stands when I was playing. I'd see these guys back there riding. They have backpacks, they have radar guns, and I didn't even think twice about it. So it was really eye opening, and it allowed me to kind of look at the game at a lot more granular level.
Well, I would imagine too that not having maybe the knowledge you had as a player was maybe a blessing in disguise. You're less technical. You kind of just free flow your game. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. It's funny you say that, Mary, because I used to sit up there and think, oh my goodness, if I thought about any of this when I was playing, I would have been paralyzed. You know, I didn't, I had no, I was oblivious to 95% of what these guys were looking at and how they would describe it. And, I just went out there, it was basically like see ball, hit ball.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't encourage any players to think about scouting while they're playing.
So then from scout school to becoming an actual scout, where was your first job as a scout, and what did your role look like?
Well, my first job, the Pirates hired me as an area scout. So, what area scouts are? They're kind of the lowest level on the amateur totem pole, the amateur scouting totem pole. In the baseball world, there are kind of three worlds of three different silos of scouting: amateur scouting, professional scouting, and then international scouting. So, the amateur scouts, they evaluate high school players. Uh, College players and junior college players. So I wanted to take a job at that level because when you're a former major league player, everyone questions your work ethic because they think, oh, you've played in the big leagues. You're not going to go and grind now. After you've had this career, you're not going to go down and you're not going to kind of be willing to put in the work to really learn this craft. So I want to dispel that. So
But
my
in
first
most
job,
in most cases, is that a fair judgment?
it is fair. It's
Okay.
absolutely fair. And I encountered it a lot when I was in my time, working in baseball. But so my first job was I was given uh, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan. And I actually lived in Munster, the first over on Walnut. So yeah, I basically the Pirates gave me you had a company car. They gave me this Impala and like basically go get them. So I was responsible for evaluating any high school, junior college, or college players in those 4 states. So I was on the road constantly. Uh, and, the scouting director at the time, Greg Smith, he told me, how, listen, you're not going to, trust me, you're not going to know what the hell you're doing, but in a year from now, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And it's exactly was the case. I had to go out there and write 400 or 500 reports and really, learn, a lot of facets of the scouting industry before I felt more comfortable and confident in my evaluations.
So interesting. And I feel even when I was growing up, the game I feel has changed so much. I'm sure in your eyes it's changed significantly. A big thing though is that we talked about this with Frank the Tank back in November of last year, is that the game has way more international stars than it did when you were growing up and of course playing. Why do you think the game has grown so much, especially in Latin America, but you're also now seeing a huge influx of Japanese support?
Well, I think on the Japanese front, I just think that these guys are being given more of an opportunity than they ever have. They were always great Japanese players, but I think there was kind of some resistance on their end from the clubs over there. They didn't want their guys coming to play in the States. From our perspective, on our end, I think that we were probably a little arrogant about the game. We thought, oh, this, we viewed the Japanese, the Japanese league as kind of a 4A type league, which it's clearly not. Um, and I played against and with Hideo Nomo. He was one of the first guys to come over and really be impactful. I think a lot of young Japanese players, Korean players, they now have seen their, other players come and have success in the big leagues. So I think their aspirations are different. I think that's part of it. In Latin America, I think that the clubs, they have do a good job of developing talent down there. It's a national pastime. Dominican, Venezuela, Puerto Rico, some in Colombia. I mean, they live for the game, and they're just being given the opportunity to play, and they're running with it.
On the hunt for legendary wings, Buffalo's in Bloomington, Indiana, and Carmel, Indiana has you covered. Crowned top 10 wings in the nation by USA Today, our wings are a fan favorite. Dip into Mrs. Louie's famous sweet Q sauce for that sweet and tangy kick. Visit Buffalo's and wing it like a pro.
Now, being a scout, what MLB team do you think has the best scouting team?
Interesting. It's all these organizations are different.
Hmm.
Uh, their use of analytics, their use of old school scouting information, it all varies. It all varies a great deal. Um, I would probably say the Phillies are really, stand out as a team that scouts well. Um, I think the Padres, AJ Preller is a fantastic evaluator, and AJ his roots are in scouting. If you look at AJ came from Texas, when they had that run back, when they got to the World Series a couple times,
Yep.
he developed all that talent down there. He's developed a ton of talent in San Diego. You know, being what the moves of the general manager, that's a different story. But I think I would probably say the Phillies, the Padres. I think the Yankees scout well too. Now, how do they use it? I don't know, but those three clubs are good. The Dodgers still, they've got guys out there that are really good evaluators too.
And how do these scouts incorporate AI with their data?
That's a challenge. When you're scouting, you want to give as qualitative of an assessment as you possibly can. When I would go in and scout like a minor league team, oftentimes I did not want to look at the statistics before I went in there. I wanted to just look at
Hmm.
them and with a
Yeah.
fresh set of eyes and say, this is what I'm seeing. After ex post, I would kind of look and see how my evaluations match with their numbers. So it's that's kind of a touchy subject, I think, with clubs, because I think many of them encourage the scouts not to try to delve into the analytics, into AI. Just basically, what do you see? Who's athletic? That's one of the hardest things to evaluate is athleticism, as we discussed earlier, the importance of
Hmm.
that. How do you really measure that? That's very qualitative. I mean, I can go and I can show you someone's broad jump. I could show you what their 60 is, how many pull-ups they could do, but that doesn't tell me are they a fluid athlete. These things are hard to measure.
That's interesting. Well, with that said, in your experience, do general managers with a scouting background or business background have more success?
Well, again, I don't want to generalize, but I
Yeah,
think the guys with the scouting background, and at least in my estimation, are probably, and I don't know why this seems to be the case. I think they're probably a little more aggressive. You look at Dave Dombrowski, um, Dave, with the Phillies, you look at his history, what he's done. He's willing to go into an organization, to a team, and trade a lot of prospects to get for a club that's ready to win. That takes, and I don't know why the scouting guys seem more inclined to do that. Preller does the same thing in San Diego. Look at some of the deals that he's made. He's been very aggressive. And again, maybe they think I can just go and find more talent, and they're more, aggressive as a result. But the scouting guys, they're willing Alex Anthopoulos is that way. They're willing to put their chips on the table and say, okay, let's try to win it. They're not as concerned about sustainable success over 10 years. If they've got a window for 2 or 3 years, they're willing to try to exploit it.
that's awesome. I mean, that makes sense too, given how hard it is to win. If you see an opportunity, you got to jump on it. So, how I know you made that jump going, getting your MBA and then scouting, but I would imagine many forget just baseball, past professional athletes, they retire and then they kind of don't know what to do, correct? So with that said, I know that you and you guys at X10 Capital are kind of working with this. Can you tell us about X10 Capital and your goals with yourself and all involved?
Yeah, sure. So, eventually I was the Angels Pro Scouting Director, and I was introduced to a couple guys who were then at Fantex, which was a company that was securitizing interest in professional athletes, and they were thinking about doing this privately, raising a fund, so that fund athletes could sell a percentage of their future interest to the fund. Um, and when they pitched me on the idea, I said this. I thought it was a fantastic idea because I knew how much it would have helped me as a player to have had some capital as a young player. As a hitter, there's a lot of anxiety. You white knuckle a lot of things, and you get into a slump. You're going to be up till 4 in the morning. It's just the nature of it. But once you have some financial security, I think you're a lot more, calm at the plate. You're more self-assured. So anyhow, so I left the Angels, and that's what I did. I went and joined the guys, and I'm still there, and we've invested a couple funds, and I'm a stronger believer in what we're doing now than I was when I left.
Awesome. Yeah, that's exciting stuff. Well, keep up the great work there. And Hal, I have one final question for you before we wrap this up. What what do you do and how often do you wear your World Series ring?
So great question. I've got my ring in a safe. I wear it infrequently. For special events, I'll pull it out. A couple of reasons. One, our rings were not great, to be honest with you. Mark Schott kind of tried to save some money back when I was playing. what happened, the league would give the teams a sum of money, and then the teams would typically add to that and, kind of trick out their rings. Well, Marge didn't do that. She just took the money that the league gave her, and she made our rings. So what happened is the guys, we had all our rings reworked. So our rings they're okay, but they're, you've seen a lot of the like the Cubs and the Dodgers stuff, the stuff they're crazy, crazy spectacular. But so it's not the greatest ring to wear. And the other thing is, people ask me like, "Hey, why don't you wear your ring?" And I said, "Well, I got one, right?" They said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, there you go." So, but I wear it once in a while, and I got to tell you, but when I do put it on, there's a lot of pride there.
That's awesome.
Special.
And one final question. Second half of this MLB season, what are some storylines you think we should follow, and who ultimately wins the World Series?
Well, I think that watch this kid in Milwaukee, Mizorowski. See how he throws. I think there's a chance he could win the Rookie of the Year. He's got pretty dominant stuff. Look at Skeens is another guy that is going to be a lot of fun to watch. You look at what he's done since he signed; is dominant. Tarek Skubal in Detroit. I mean, you're seeing historic stuff out of Skubal. He can single-handedly, propel a team into the, latter rounds of the playoffs. It's tougher. It's a lot easier to get into the playoffs now. A lot harder to win a World Series. So it's a crapshoot. But you got to love the Dodgers, because they've got these guys, like Glass now. I think is coming back. He's off the DL. They're going to get pitching healthy. And they've got a juggernaut lineup. But I wouldn't want to match up with Detroit. They got with Skubal, Reese Olson, Mize. They've got quality starting pitching, and they've got some depth in their lineup too. So I wouldn't bet against either of those teams.
Well, what if the Cubs are going to make a serious push? What do they need to do?
Well, I think they probably want to fortify their bullpen, and those arms are typically easier to get at the trade deadline. I don't know what else they might need, but it always helps to have bullpen arms.
I feel that's been their crutch the last couple of years.
Yeah, listen, Presley, he kind of had a rocky go there for a while, but he settled down. But you'd like to see some real power coming out of that bullpen when you get in the playoffs,
I hope you're right. We'd love to see a Cubs October run.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yes, it would be. Hal, it's been great to meet you. It's been great to learn more about you and your career. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, guys. I enjoyed it.
It's been our pleasure. We'll do it again. Hal
Right.
Morris. Thank you, guys.